Welcome to this bonus episode of Something About Science. In this episode, we speak to Flybox to learn about their insect-fueled farming products that help to create a sustainable solution to agricultural waste.
So I'm Larry Kotch, and I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Flybox.
And how did you become involved with the company?
It was actually my baby, me and Andrea and Thomas. It started on a walk in Cornwall, but quickly got out of hand from there. So I got involved in the space because since university I'd been studying waste management and insect farming at university. I then ran another company, which I grew and then exited about 4 years ago. And then basically I thought that the industry at that time was really ready to enter into in a meaningful way. You know, a lot of the challenges of the early stages of the industry had been overcome. I'd also grown up in Africa my whole life, so we really wanted to do the angle of the global south and making something that would apply there. That very much fit what Andrea was doing. She just left. She'd just been working in the insect farming industry for 7 years at many of the companies in the UK, and she and I and Thomas talked, and we thought it would be a really good idea to set up. We looked at the market, we took our position in it, which we can talk about in this interview, and started chipping away. Yeah.
Brilliant. It sounds like you had quite a rich history in the industry. So kind of looking more to the industry itself, could you define what a sustainable food chain looks like? And how does this kind of compare to our current activities?
Yeah, and I think this is a really good question because I think the definition of sustainability can change for people. I think it's worth first just setting at the outset that our food system is very complex. There are very many. It's a big supply chain that stretches across the world. Most of the food, say in the UK, is imported. Most of the animal feed is imported, and so we rely on what's going on in those countries as far as responsible sourcing of different ingredients and the sustainability of those activities as that definition changes. What the food system has currently allowed us to do is drive the price of food down, to put food in people's bellies, to increase their amount of protein so that they can live happy and healthy lives. And I thank everyone involved in the food system and the whole supply chain for having done that, first of all. So that I'm incredibly grateful that I live in a world where I can access calories, for the cost and I can then focus my life on doing things like insect farming. So it's only because of them that I'm able to do what I do. So I'm always very appreciative and have a lot of gratitude for that. What challenges we started coming up with is there's more people around. They want more protein in the form of meat and hamburgers, but all of that protein itself needs to feed on protein as well. So protein is the kind of the protein crunch is the issue that we're facing. And so we currently get most of our protein from soy or fish meal, which we call traditional proteins. So the vast majority being soy, and that comes from Brazil, from Southeast Asia, and that has been linked to, among other crops, lots of deforestation in the Amazon. So one of the biggest drivers of deforestation in the Amazon is soy. Now, lots of companies can responsibly source, but all you need is 20% of that supply to be irresponsibly sourced to start taking down more and more vegetation. But you can't get away from the fundamental truth, which is more protein is required. There is a demand for protein, and that demand comes from people who are overeating, let's say in the West, but also comes from people who are starving and who need protein in other parts of the world. We can never forget that most of the increased demand is coming from people who will die unless they get it. So we can't mess with that supply chain and start making things cost more immediately, if those people are on the line. And so the way we see it is a sustainable food chain needs to be efficient. So all of the waste we produce as a society, those are free calories going down the toilet, and we currently throw away about a third of them. So let's at least start with getting that back into the food system, which is of course where insects come into the play. There are many other alternative proteins that have lots of advantages, like things like bioethanol or biofuels. Once you've got all the fuel and the oil out, there's a lot of waste there that can be turned into sort of fermented plant proteins and things like that. And there could be huge supplies of this. So there's some very ingenious ways of, there's cultured meat is something that maybe down the line could also work. Very difficult to see how we get there, kind of like nuclear fusion, but it's always a possibility. There's things like algae that grow very efficiently. So there's a number of alternative proteins that should complement the existing food system to not necessarily destroy the supply chains that exist, since people have poured their money and their processes and their into them. But any more protein demand online, we're going to need different proteins. We can't eliminate proteins because people need proteins. We need more of them, and we need better protein. And so I think sustainability would be financial sustainability for the world's poor that actually generates all that protein. So like actually them having a livelihood, not taking that away from them, and sustainable from a efficiency point of view. So we look at it more from the points of, let's make everything super efficient first. Let's not try and eliminate things, unless we're dead certain. And then let's also have less food consumed. All of us are walking around with way too many extra rolls in the UK, at least I am. And so let's try and bring down our calories. That's all fine. I don't want to coerce anyone to do that. I would love it if people ate less protein, but most of the world is not eating enough protein. So even if we reduce the protein we eat, ideally it should be going to people who need it, because your brain, your immune system, your entire, all the things you depend on to improve your society require you to have nutritious food with high protein or higher protein. And so we can't forget that even if we in the global north are able to reduce our protein, it will mean that it'll be still going higher than we can reduce it by in the rest of the world. So we need better protein to fill that extra demand, and keep the old ones more responsible, more attention, spotlight on people that are not being responsible with it, and reward people who are. And I think that's a good aim for the next decade. I think trying to go any faster than that might have unintended consequences that would probably fail to fix the problem and make everyone poorer and worse off. Yeah.
No, definitely. And I like how you've talked about designing strategies to complement existing systems, not to replace them, because I think, it's fair to say that regarding kind of any social change or any kind of industrial change, completely overhauling an existing system is rarely ever works. You need to kind of take it slow and create things that, educate people and show people that, this can work, but also if we do this, it's better, it's more sustainable, and it benefits more people. So talking specifically about Flybox and your highlight product, what is Flybox Grow and how does it work?
Yeah, so Flybox is an insect technology company. So fundamentally, we help food businesses to enter this space and to build their own insect farm. Currently, right now, it's very difficult if you sort of have a lot of waste or you're consuming a lot of protein as part of your livestock farm, or you have a lot of food processing, you're producing a lot of waste, and you want to do something with it. You want to generate more value for yourself and for society, let's say by doing an insect farm. It's very difficult to get someone to come and build that for you. It has to be done bespoke, needs consultants, all the rest of it, and needs quite a big price tag if you want to do it, certainly in the global north. So Flybox is fundamentally addressing that problem. Like, how do we lower the barrier entry, empower people with the tools to get into this exciting space across the world, global south and global north? And so we are developing a suite of modules, Flybox modules, that deal with the whole insect farm, from breeding, nursery, growing, waste processing, product processing. So we want to have a full farm solution. So you can go as far as from one Flybox all the way to a 30 Flybox farm in a full configuration. That's our North Star, if you like. And with these Flybox modules, they can be arranged in different configurations to suit any process, any product specification. Where what we started with was the Flybox Grow, which you just mentioned, and that deals with larva who are at the what we call the seedling stage. So they are basically like juvenile larvae or seedlings. They're like a few days old. And so that's the point at which they're robust enough to start eating through large amounts of waste very quickly. And so the Flybox Grow sits next to organic waste. You put the organic waste in and you add the seedlings, and then every 10 days they just process it all, turn it into fertilizer and feed right there and then. And so that's what the Flybox Grow does, is it gives people an on-farm or on-site solution to dealing with their waste. That has many advantages, because otherwise you have to send the waste off to an insect farm, which costs money in logistics. Actually costs about a third of your costs is just transporting waste to your farm. So it eliminates all of that. And for certain people, they can actually use the products that come out of the grow in their own supply chain. So, if they have animals that can eat insects, they can use the waste on their farm to turn that into feed for their own animals, rather than having to process it at a company, send it back to them as pellets. You cut a lot of links out of the chain, a lot of middlemen out of the chain, as opposed to doing it in a central big factory. And so the Flybox Grow is ready to go and allows people to do that today. So we then work with partners to supply them with seedlings on a subscription, and all they need to do is load the waste into the grow, and then they can generate the products. Yeah,
that's quite cool. And 10 days is quite a quick turnaround. Is that basically from inputting the waste to kind of getting the end product? Wow, yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. So you can put about 9 tons every cycle, which is 10 days long, and that will turn into 3 tons circa of fertilizer ready to go. Dry powder fertilizer, and called frass, and it'll turn into about 1.5 tons of live insects in one cycle. So you can do 3 cycles a month, basically, in one grow. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Have you noticed any kind of other products on the market that are as quick or have as many kind of benefits to this, or do you think that the Flybox Grow is pretty much a standalone, kind of pioneering a new sort of waste disposal system?
No, so there are other people doing a similar thing to what we're doing. Some in the UK already, and also some in Europe. And all taking a similar approach to us, which is on-farm solutions, smaller scale. What we've seen in the industry is everyone doing the large-scale stuff, and we're now all coming to address the SME side of the market with ready-to-go, prefab, modular solutions that are kind of low effort to set up and start using. And that really follows the trend that most livestock industries have gone down. Whenever livestock starts, people do it at a big level, and then they start on-farm solutions. The same happened in anaerobic digestion. The first plants were massive, like municipal level sewage systems that dealt with all of that. And now you've just got on-farm solutions the size of a car that you can put on your farm and do biogas. So we're doing the on-farm small mid-scale solution, which we think has more in terms of like just sheer number of people that would want to get into this. Obviously, I think it's a bigger market in terms of size, but you need the people doing the big factories as well, and they're always going to be necessary. There's lots of advantages at a certain scale to doing a big factory, of course, especially in Europe. But where we're also focused, which is the global south, there just simply isn't the infrastructure or the skill sets to have one of those big automated factories. You need something a lot more modular, off-grid, low infrastructure. And so I think we fit really nicely into a lot of use cases that a lot of people don't. And with our presence in Kenya, we field tested the product in Kenya from the beginning. So we're very confident in its ability to withstand the extra heat, loads, humidity issues in those countries. So yeah, I think we've got the most versatile solution at the moment, but there's certainly other people who are validating that it's the next high growth space in insect farming, is sorting out these on-farm smaller solutions. Yeah.
No, definitely. Could you discuss some of the case studies of the product being used in Kenya and in the UK?
We are evaluating a number of use cases, 2 that are pretty serious that we want to have agreed at least in principle by the end of this year, and that will be 2 smaller farmers as well doing it in the UK. in Kenya, the main people we've been working with is the Kiambu government, which is a county right next to Nairobi, the capital, where they do most of the agriculture, and that has been a system up in Kiambu that is dealing with farm waste and market waste. So there's lots of market waste in Africa that currently just is paid to take to the dump site, and we're turning that into a scheme which then provides low-cost fertilizer and insects to local farmers. And so that's the idea with them is the government is looking at this as a potential unlock to speed up farming, lower the cost of farming for smallholder farmers. And so
No, and hopefully it'll kind of help to kickstart a lot of kind of areas of production and growth there for sure. So you mentioned that the company was in R&D for a couple of years. Did you kind of encounter any challenges in the design of Flybox Grow or other products?
Yeah, so it is actually it was a challenge for the last 3 years. I think on the face of it, people look at these container systems, not just for insect farming, mind you, for anyone doing container agriculture or vertical farming. And on the surface of it, you're just like, it's just a box with like an HVAC system in it. You just stick the thermostat on and it will just maintain the temperature. It turns out that couldn't be further from the truth. The problem is when you're thinking about it as like an office. Imagine if you put a shipping container, you just wanted to sit in there and that would be your office. You can just put an AC in, set it to 20 degrees or whatever, and you're all good. The problem is when you have 9 tons of biology inside there that has one of the fastest metabolisms on Earth. That's why they can eat that waste in 10 days, what would take us months comparatively to eat. They just chow through that, and that gives off a lot of gas, a lot of ammonia, a lot of incredible amounts of heat. Changes the humidity big time because you've got all this wet waste that is then like the water vapors going into the air. And also, if you want to stack this room full of biology, it has to be stacked really tightly. So you want to get the good unit economics. This thing has to be to the rafters. And so how do you get air to flow through the gaps in every single tray and maintain a perfect climate at the tray level, at the insect, so each individual insect is in a happy climate, not just your sensor is telling you, oh, the ambient temperature I'm looking at here is okay, but can you have the entire thing evenly done? And so the way that you circulate air, we had to do a lot of innovation, and that's what our patent covers, is how we were able to get the air to move around efficiently. And let's just say that's where all of the trouble was. That's where we cut our teeth. Yeah.
That's quite interesting. I wouldn't have thought that the air was
no, we didn't either. It was a big fly in the ointment for us as well, but
Yeah, because I wondered, like, how did you decide on the larvae, the insect to use? Did you basically pick a non-invasive species, or like how did that kind of like decision be made?
Oh, I see. You mean in terms of black soldier fly? Why is that used as opposed to other insects?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a combination of flies themselves don't have mouth parts, so they aren't a known vector for disease. That especially that species of fly, and at the same time have a very, very fast consumption rate. So about 70 to 80% of all insects produced for feed are black soldier fly. The rest is basically mealworms. Is mealworms. So there's a company in France that's doing mealworms in a big way. But BSF, across the board, like let's say out of 100 companies, 80 of them will be focused on it on Hermetica lucens, the black soldier fly, and that's it's disease vector profile as well as its feed conversion and its speed of consumption. So it's really like the science just said. Computer says this one kind of thing. Yeah,
it's ticking all the boxes that we needed to tick.
Yeah.
Cool. So Flybox partners with several leading institutions like Innovate UK, HSBC, the EU Horizons 2020 project, and many, many more. Why is it so important for organisations of this size to come together like this to support startups and SMEs? And what benefits can it bring to companies that are specifically targeting key sustainability goals?
Yes. Okay. So I mean, on the first point, this is like getting into kind of political philosophy a bit, which is a passion area of mine. But I think that if there's one role that I would want a government to do, like, as it would be to keep its citizens safe. If there's one thing that we can all agree that it should do, even to the most libertarian of us, it's keep us safe. At least be able to do that. I think all of the stuff like climate change, changing food systems, I would count as an existential risk. Right, as same as like diseases or asteroids hitting us or whatever. It's like these are existential risks, and I would be happy personally to pay money as an insurance policy against those existential risks. And the best way of the government deploying that insurance money is to invest in R&D in areas that most large corporations are not willing to invest in yet. So, fusion is a great example. Like, imagine coming to someone saying, I've got a great R&D project. It'll take 100 years to figure out, and I need $100 billion. No, no, people are thinking in terms of the next, the next business cycle. They're not thinking in terms of 100 years. So that's really where the government has people's interests at heart. They're talking about the existential long-term risks. And so I think it's fantastic that, Innovate UK, KTN, the EU Horizons program, that's exactly what they do. They're all fantastic people. They work, you can tell they're all motivated in this way, in absolutely the right way. And what that does is it then signals, that support then signals to the wider industry that, hey, this is something we should now take seriously, because it's actually aligned with the government as well. And, the governments are very, very large and have quite a big percentage of the economy is now kind of government involvement. And so it's, to investors, to industry, they look at that and they say, the government is clearly telling us that they're trying to set up this industry for the future because it aligns with everyone's objectives. So we should look into this area. We should make at least some early investments. We should try and get our head around it. And so it's a nice virtuous cycle, basically, where you're sort of leading people down the right path without having to coerce anyone. It's just like, we're going to invest in these things. There's going to be a big payout at some point. Like, the earlier you get in, the better. And I think that's great. Yeah.
No, definitely. It's kind of similar to the conversation we were having earlier about how you can't just overhaul like the industrial practices or workflows. It's that there has to be kind of bits of support here and there, and then eventually it will snowball into something great. It's just that, sometimes you have to focus on the smaller or like the things that aren't as flashy, and then eventually they will become, foundational institutions. But no, it is really great to hear that there's a lot of investment in the area. So, as you kind of mentioned, the company's taking baby steps into the UK for its using its products and things. What are the next steps for the company? Are there any kind of developments that you're working towards, or is it more kind of a see how things go with this particular UK-based project at the moment?
Yes, so we're working on various angles. So, like I mentioned, our three products is the Flybox Breed, the Flybox Hatch, and the Flybox Grow. And so those three modules can be configured into many different exciting, I guess, farm configurations, some of which apply really well in the global south. The way they do things over there is different because the climate is better. You can actually do a lot of the growing or the waste management side out in the open, like in greenhouses, which is a lot cheaper. And you can then really start doing it at scale for communities. And so we're very excited about some of the conversations we're having there. So hopefully we'll announce, more about that soon. But there's big opportunity there. Then in the UK, what we're doing is focusing on our first proper, demonstrator farm with Dinton's getting really well. We want to make sure that experience is great for them as well. And then at the same time, evaluating different cases in the UK and in Europe. Legislation is the main barrier, unfortunately, for us or any other insect farm scaling. We really, really need the government to at least bring us in line with the EU's regulations, because it's choking off the industry too much at the moment. And lots of people I know are sitting on the sidelines just waiting to get in and put capital behind things. If only the government would legislate stuff. I mean, I definitely I'm not, the government's doing a lot of great stuff, but I'm just saying, yeah, there's stuff that would be very simple to change, that I think could have a lot of value. And once that's done, I think we'll see a lot. So I think that kind of aligns with our timelines. We're just trying to make sure that the next 18 months, all of our existing projects go really well, and a couple other smaller case studies, and then we'll see. We're also raising an investment round at the moment that will hopefully close by the end of the year. So yeah,
lots of exciting stuff going on then, by the sounds of it. So the last question I have for you today is, where would you recommend that our readers go to either learn more about the company, to learn more about insect farming, or sustainability in the food chain itself?
I mean, definitely there's a report by the WWF and Tesco's. I forget the name exactly of the report, but I'm sure if you Google WWF space Tesco's, or just WWF insect protein report or something like that, that was the best kind of overview. I mean, it's a big report, but it's the best overview that's freely accessible that I came across. I think that's a great way to just get a full picture of what's going on. And then in terms of for us, our website has sort of by design limited information on it, since we were in R&D mode before, and we'll change that soon, hopefully. And yeah, as far as like sustainability news, I get my diet from YouTube, from various different YouTubers, but of course I'm in the millennial generation, so maybe that's not for everyone. But there's a really cool YouTube channel called Decouple Media that I think gives a very balanced view. They're extremely pro-environment, but like kind of the topics we've been hitting on today, the realities of supply chains, the mineral realities of the world for transitioning. They're very soberly looking at what it would actually take to solve the problem, rather than just saying they wish it was different. And I think that's how I'd look at the space, because I think that kind of thinking will have to win out. Even if right now we're in a space where there's a lot of people that are agitated and annoyed that things aren't changing fast, which is fair enough, the solutions aren't necessarily always there, and the realities aren't always looked at in the face. And but there are more and more people that are coming out now with a much more sensible line. And when we start hitting head first the limitations of like there's not enough minerals in the ground to make electric cars actually potentially more damaging than non-electric cars in terms of CO2. Just these kind of things that are coming out now that are just like kind of bursting the bubble a little bit. I think we now need people to like really look at the serious stuff. So I encourage people to try and find that kind of content that isn't just complaining, but is like, okay, how are we seriously gonna solve this problem?
No, definitely. I think it can help to give people a bit of a peace of mind as well, to know that, what actually is the situation and what efforts are being made. Even if they're small, like there's still some sort of, reasoning or kind of program in place to help either address the issue or mitigate the issue. No, I'll definitely have to check them out myself as well.